my dear people of the Southern Cameroons. Accept revolutionary greetings from me, John Bakuro, this Monday, December 14, in the year 2020. In just about 16 or 17 days, we shall be seeing this year off. And my dear people, I believe this is a very important moment for us to begin to draw balance sheets of what we have achieved thus far, what we failed to achieve, and also examine our strategies and ask ourselves which one worked, which one did not work, which one fell short, and then we try to re-strategize to ensure that in the year 2021 we shall draw ever closer to the freedom that we seek for the people of the once independent state of the Southern Cameroons. Today's discussion, as I promised in my last publication or in my last communication, is going to be about the situation of our chiefs and funds, or I should say, the traditional institutions in the Southern Cameroons. I'd like us to understand that what we are seeing today did not just happen today. There is a history behind what we are seeing. And so a careful understanding of how we got here today with a total collapse of our traditional institutions is what is going to guide us to take a course of action even as we keep fighting for freedom. Because sometimes the enemy does everything to take out even the soul of your own community. Before I get into that, I want to congratulate the people of Bamenda and the environs, first of all, and all the people of the Southern Cameroons, but particularly those of Bamenda and environ, because, again, this Monday, they showed the world that they know what they want. They demonstrated to the world that, as a matter of fact, a gentleman who has decided to play the proxy of the colonial administration in Yaoundé by name Achobang Paul cannot tell us and define for us or determine for us how we go about fighting for our freedom. Even the colonial senior divisional officer and divisional officer in Bamenda, or divisional officers in Bamenda, will not force our people to give up their own freedom quest. And I want to thank and congratulate all the courageous people of the Southern Cameroons for continually beating all odds, beating fear, and standing up strong to let the world know that we, the people of the Southern Cameroons, are not happy with our current situation. That, like the Russian representative at the United Nations Security Council said, what is happening is botched decolonization, an incomplete decolonization process that is costing lives in the Southern Cameroons, and indicated that it is only direct negotiations which should normally lead to the complete pull out of La République du Cameroun and its administration from our territory. I think this message is sinking, and I want to congratulate our people. You want to know how we are doing? We are doing very well. We have problems, definitely. We have some misunderstandings, but trust me, my people, we are doing just so well. You want to look at the actions of the colonizer, the actions of Yaoundé. You understand this. When Yaoundé begins to admit that over the past few months, 637 soldiers have deserted the ranks, it is no prank. It is not because they just felt like they should do it. They are forced to do it because they have realized that more and more the philosophy of the annihilation of the people of the Southern Cameroons is no longer working. A lot of these soldiers, due to our continuous education and the resistance that they see in our people, they are beginning to understand that the war they are waging, that the campaign they are leading in the Southern Cameroons is a campaign of blame. It's a worthless campaign that will not bring them any glory at all. And so a good lot of them are abandoning. That is why on a daily basis, La République du Cameroon is launching recruitment of thousands into their military, yet it is not yielding any fruit. You want to know the exact composition of those who have deserted. I'm saying this before I get to the crux of our discussion today. The composition is of these 637. You have 94 gendarmes. These are paramilitary troops. So this tells you that they will not be very huge in numbers because their deployment is not equally as huge. But the biggest number of desertees has to do with those in the infantry. Those are the ones who have to march into all the villages, all the cities, and all the towns. The infantry, 345, a whooping number of them, deserted. Then those who come by air, to do raids and all or not, 79 of them in the Air Force deserted. And then 100 deserted in the Marine. Those are the ones that are mostly in areas like Indian and, Fako counties and all of those things. They too have realized that it is a worthless venture and they are abandoning. And then you have 19 who are in the fire brigade. You ask, how does the fire brigade get connected? When things get so rough, they absolutely go deploying everyone. They deploy from all sides and everything. So this is a clear indication that the growing desertion in the ranks of those they are sending to wreak havoc on our people should be a pointer to the effect that they are losing their options. So let us stay strong. We have to continue to stay strong. We have to continue to keep the resistance alive. Those of you who still continue, those of you with private cars and bikes and commercial motorbikes who continue to go out on ghost town days, you are not doing the right thing. You are not doing the right thing, not just for yourself, not just for your children, not just for the community, but for future generations of Southern Cameroonians to come. You should be able to see what others are doing and stay home. You are no exception. This freedom we are seeking, when it comes, it will be for every single Southern Cameroonian, even those fighting against it. But my brothers and sisters, it is very important to be on the right side of history. That said, let me get now into the crux of the matter. You see, when I was studying political sciences, I read a chapter known as the theory of groups. And now, what I learned about the theory of groups, basically about politics in countries in Francophone Africa, has to do with the fact that politicians generally go after people in our communities who have a following. If you are president of your village cultural and development association, you are attractive to politicians. Why? Because you have a following. Because they believe that if they have you, it is very likely that they will have a lot of those who are following you. If they don't have the 100%, they may have them even 45, 50, sometimes 80%. That is just enough to meet their objectives. This philosophy pushes them to want to go after women who are leaders in the various women groups. And so, in the situation of the Cameroons, especially of the Southern Cameroons, the regime in Yaoundé noticed early enough that our funds, our chiefs, have the backing of the people to a certain point where the people even believe that funds receive their authority directly from God. And so disobeying a fund, disobeying the instructions of a fund, will be considered sacrilegious. For that reason, in the 1990s, when Mr. Paul Biya noticed what a system, that they were failing, that they had lost popularity, that the people didn't want them anymore, they decided, therefore, to go after pools of people that they could use to either to succeed in brainwashing the people, or they go right ahead to constrain them. What I'm saying for the chiefs and funds in the Southern Cameroons is valid for civil servants across the Cameroons. So, to make sure that they created some base of loyalties, Mr. Paul Biya first, he got that title that we all know, Fund of Funds, and he gave him leverage to be able to say, okay, he stands above the funds, he is one of them, and so they can do things together. First was that step of identification. So he identified with them, and he says, okay, now I'm one of you. We can commune together. So we have to do everything to protect ourselves. Mark the ourselves here. So consequently, when Mr. Paul Biya noticed that he lost the presidential election in 1992, again went ahead to lose in 1997, he dawned on him that he would never ever win the popular vote if things were to go normally. And so to succeed, to get things his way, I'm sure we all recall, if you had the opportunity to read papers and know what was happening in the various communities, you see that funds, who generally were above party politics in our various villages, suddenly started finding themselves getting more and more involved. Not just involved because they wanted to get involved, the administration wooed them, did everything to bring them in, because they felt that if they associate with us, definitely the people will flow behind them. So we noticed, therefore, that even fundoms, where the funds were quiet and all of those things that were not involved in politics, they really felt it was a bad game. They suddenly found themselves being co-opted into the ruling party. They found themselves being called to attend ruling party meetings. They found themselves being called to issue what you call motions of support and all of those things. And then matters got to a head when they got some of these funds at the dawn of elections to go out there and try to not only convince their people, but to coerce them to vote for the CPDM party. I'm sure we all remember the practice whereby some funds went as far as putting water in calabashes and summoning the entire village to the palaces, and then splashing those calabashes on the ground, breaking them, and asking the villagers to all cross over these calabashes in oath, over the water, over the debris of the calabash in oath, that they were going to vote for the CPDM and the CPDM only. And that if they voted for any other political party or the candidate of any other political party apart from the CPDM, they were going to be under a curse. This was the beginning of the collapse of our traditional institutions. Because we're not in a one-party system, we are returned to multi-partism. And so, inside these villages, among the elite, were those who were in the opposition, and there were those who were in the ruling party. And so those who were in the opposition, for the first time, started openly opposing their funds, started openly telling off their funds, started openly criticizing the funds, even during rallies and all of those things, criticizing their chiefs, calling them names. This was the start of the end. And so this only went crescendo as gradually some of the funds and chiefs were forced even to be candidates in the pious hope that people will vote for them and all of those things. So gradually, Mr. Biya hoodwinked these chiefs, those who were willing, who accepted willingly to be hoodwinked, sail through. Those who were resistant, who said they wanted to stay away from party politics, found the administration again on their path. What happened? In most of our villages, if you take a careful look, you'll find that there are too many chieftaincy disputes. And the reason is simple. Once you are not for the administration, they make sure they create a dispute somewhere. They get someone that rises and starts saying that you are not even the rightful person to be on the throne. And so what happens? They put you in a difficult situation, and the administration plays a double game and gives the impression that truly there appears to be a case to answer, and they dangle that they use that as a bulwark over the fund or chief concerned to make you realize that you either give in your loyalty or you could be replaced. Because first, the administration, before long, had arrogated to itself the powers to be the ones to officiate the designation of our traditional rulers, even when our traditional institutions are firm, strong, and clear as to the mode of selection of the successors of our various funds and chiefs. So you take a careful look at this, examine this very well, you realize that at some point, a lot of these funds and traditional rulers had to get in to the circles for the sake of survival. The few that have resisted right up to this moment continue to face carnage and trouble on a daily basis. This is what has broken down our traditional institutions. This is what has put us in a collision course with our tradition, right to the point where you see young people cannot take the delight to capture a fawn. Gosh, who could ever have imagined that? To capture a fawn and hold him, touch him with their bare hands. These are things that could not happen because of the mythical undertones that were connected to the institution of chieftaincy, to our fondoms, to the traditional institution. So you see that gradually, they reduced even our chiefs to our funds, to the point where they themselves started finding themselves having to fill whole grandstands and sit there. Sometimes they even almost get to the point of wanting to get them to fight over food. Funds that traditionally should not even eat in public. I know that when I speak now, then some people will remember a time when President Amadou Ahidjo got to Kimbo and asked that the Fon of Nsor should come and meet him where he was, and the Fon of Nsor said it didn't happen. That Ahidjo himself was from the north where tradition is respected. And so, with the Lamidos and the others, and so he should come. And in the end, Ahidjo bended and went to meet the Fon of Nsor in his palace. But this is all gone. Completely gone. Today, they have done everything to minimize the support that the people had for their funds. Because the palaces, especially in the grass field, we know that the palace belongs to the people and therefore should never run dry of supplies. But when politics infiltrated our palaces, funds started finding themselves at the mercy of their own means to take care of themselves and the numerous wives and children that they take in line with tradition. Just take a look at this. If you go back down memory's lane, you will realize that in every community, every household that had farms had roles that were reserved for the palace. When it was harvest season, everything that was harvested from those rows were immediately directed to the palace, such that the palace always, had to swim in abundance. That is no longer so today. In a lot of our communities, the funds have been reduced to beggars, to royal beggars, yes. They can no longer take care of themselves, the numerous wives and children that they have. And so consequently, they find themselves at the mercy of political elite. And a lot of this political elite, therefore, decided to thingify. When I say thingify, they transform funds and chiefs into things. Because they give you money, and the notion of who pays the piper dictates the tune, they now tell you how you have to reason. They now tell you which direction you have to go. They now tell you which decision you must take in whichever circumstance. Who could ever imagine the Fon of Nsor being crammed in an armored car with total strangers robbing bodies with him? Who could ever imagine the Fon of Nsor being crammed in a helicopter with a total stranger, commandeering him and even dictating to him what he should tell the media? My dear people of the Southern Cameroons, La République du Cameroun is doing everything gradually to not only destroy us, but destroy even what we hold so dear to us, to destroy the very soul, the very fabric of the Southern Cameroons. I believe that a careful understanding of this will make us realize where we stand. And I want to draw the attention of those in charge of traditional institutions, the Fons and the chiefs. Take note about this. Ask yourself, when history will be written in the future, free and independent Southern Cameroons, about Fons and chiefs and the role they played in the liberation movement, what would they say about me? Would they say I was on the right side of history or I was on the wrong side? You only get drafted as much as you allow yourself to be drafted. But this is exactly where we are today. Do our Fons and chiefs get respected anymore? No, no. Because they have been reduced to objects. They have been transformed into parrots simply singing out what the CPDM or Mr. Paul Biya wants. The other day, I listened to an audio. This audio was sent by a fellow sister from Mogamo. And she was struggling hard to plead on behalf of one of the traditional rulers, saying he has said Mr. Paul Biya is the fund of funds. He just dictates on them. They are under serious pressure. They don't even know what to do. They don't even own themselves anymore. They just have to listen. They are just pushed. They are like in a court and everything. And so she's pleading on his behalf that whatever he's doing now, he's doing because he's fault. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is really serious. And I thought it was just for that fund to go and vote. But in the end, when I tried to check out, I discovered that he didn't even just have to go and vote, he was even a candidate. My dear people, this is a moment where we need to employ the utmost wisdom to do all we can to secure our freedom, but at the same time, to also work as hard as possible to protect the soul of our community, to protect the very soul of the Southern Cameroons, to protect the soul of Amazonia. Yes, we can. We can do all of this. We need to engage into serious education, in serious under-the-table dialogue and discussions with all the actors concerned. Let us take a careful look at the circumstances surrounding us and apply the kind of wisdom necessary to let us navigate these very difficult waters. What I'm saying holds true for civil servants. At least I was one. I remember that each time they had to hold CPDM meetings when one minister or the other was appointed from the area, I received letters of invitation urging me to attend CPDM planning meetings. It had to be me, courageous enough to tell them I don't belong. And they will say, you cannot be eating Mr. Paul Biya's money, a salary every month end, and then you don't want to support him. And I will remind them, Mr. Paul Biya doesn't own any money. He doesn't pay me any money. I'm a civil servant. I'm paid by the taxpayers' money. And too often, I will take their pay slips for those who are willing to and show them. You see, you pay CRTV tax. Some pay 4,500. Some pay. I say, if you're even giving us all of this money you pay in tax and CRTV, I will be earning perhaps 3-4 million CFA francs a month as salary. So to tell you, this money I am paid, or the money you receive as a civil servant, does not come from Mr. Paul Biya's pocket. It is a taxpayer's money. The civil servant is the employee of the taxpayer, like Mr. Paul Biya himself. But because they brainwash the people in the communities, because they use leaders of various groups, because they contact influential people everywhere, hoodwink them, coerce them, and hold them on their balls, and use them, we end up with all these misconceptions. Our funds long lost their authorities. Because of those things they started doing, I mean, even women and children would talk to funds anyhow. That didn't used to happen. But should we sit down and watch that which is so dear to us, that which defines us as a people, to disappear into thin air because of La République du Cameroun? Let us reason. I'm launching a reflection for us to think together exactly on how to navigate these very difficult waters and get to a clear-cut and important resolution as we continue to fight harder and harder to take back our country. Yes, we will take back our country. Yes, we will overcome. I like the tenacity of our people. I like the bravery of our people. We are walking the talk of freedom. We may be facing problems. We may be facing difficulties along the line. But trust me, my dear people of the Southern Cameroons, we are on the right trajectory. Some of the difficulties we see, some of the problems placed before us and blown up to seem so big are simply meant to break our morale. No, we have to remain strong. We have to remain motivated. We have to remain determined to score the goal. And yes, we can. We will score that goal. Cheers and courage as we continue to stand up and stand out and commit to attaining our objective. Have a wonderful moment. Make sure you share this video, and if you are not subscribed, subscribe so that we shall continue to exchange knowledge on how to go about our freedom, or on how to go about restoring the freedom and the soul of the Southern Cameroons. Thank you once more.